Greetings, everyone. My name is Jonathan Bailey. I'm from the website Plagiarism Today, which can be found at plagiarismtoday.com. And today I want to do something just a little bit different. You see, I've got this post on Plagiarism Today. It went up last week. It's been doing pretty good. Turns out there's a lot of interest in the copyright of Doctor Who. I'll put a link to this in the description and let you see it. But yeah, the long story short is this post has been doing amazingly well, and a couple of people have requested that I come on camera and talk about it and maybe, have some additional discussion, because it turns out, in researching this, that I learned a lot of things that I either couldn't fit in or didn't feel like it was appropriate to include in the text version. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick recap of the text version. And I promise for those of you coming from Plagiarism Today, we'll keep it as brief as possible. And then I want to talk about a few addendum things that I didn't get to discuss. Maybe some of it will be a future post, maybe not. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this information. But all I know is I've been down a 3.5-week rabbit hole on this. And god damn it, I'm getting a video out of it somewhere. So you're coming along with me for this. I shouldn't have to suffer alone. But anyways, so let's talk a little bit about this very, very interesting copyright history to Doctor Who. You see, I began to think about this shortly after the Doctor Who Christmas special. And by the way, before we begin too deep in, I should say that I am a Doctor Who fan. I have watched every episode of the reboot. I attempted to watch some of the original. It didn't go very well. But indeed, I've enjoyed the reboot very well. I would not consider myself the ultimate Whovian. But hey, it's a fun series. It's one of the sci-fis I do watch. But anyways, shortly after the recent Christmas special and the last episode for Stephen Moffat as a showrunner, there was a bit of a controversy, a copyright controversy, as the people who owned, or at least claimed they owned, and it turns out they were correct, the character of Lethbridge Stewart, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, were coming forward saying, hey, their creation of a new character, specifically, Captain Lethbridge Stewart here, as seen in the Christmas special, is a violation of our copyright. Now, the long and short of it is that, like I said, it created a brief conflict between them. Let's see, I got the article right. Misplaced things. But yeah, I mean, this was a very interesting story where basically, there it is. Basically, the people who owned the original character were claiming that bringing in his grandfather was creating a derivative work. Now, later articles would completely downplay the copyright controversy here. It turns out all's been worked out. It's all good. But it got me thinking how weird that is. I mean, think about it. Well, like Star Trek, there's no third party who owns Spock. You know what I mean? There's no third party that owns, the Klingons. And with Star Wars, nobody owns Yoda. It's owned by Disney, like everything else in Star Wars. And CBS Paramount, or I should just say Viacom and save everyone time, owns everything Star Trek related. And it got me very interested. I had heard that there were other weirdnesses, so I began to investigate. And it turns out it runs pretty deep into Doctor Who. The long and short of it is, up until about the fifth Doctor, 1 through 4, writers oftentimes retain control of their creations. And that meant a lot of things that are very, very popular in Doctor Who, even today, remain controlled by someone not the BBC. That includes K9, the loving, doting, robotic, laser-blasting robotic companion. He is owned by his original creators. Interesting also is the Daleks, or I should say the character of the Daleks, are owned by Terry Nation. Now this one's a little bit weird because the BBC did the design and the shape of the Daleks, but Terry Nation holds the copyright to the creator, so it's kind of a joint thing going on there. And there's even a bit of controversy over the TARDIS itself, with the son of one of the original authors of those first episodes of Doctor Who saying, yeah, I hold the copyright to that. There's actually a legal battle going on right now over exactly that issue. So yeah, this is a very, very bizarre thing. All these authors, and by the way, there's plenty more out there too. I've learned since I did the article that several of the original companions are owned by their source authors. And of course, you've got the things created by third-party companies that were licensed third-party companies that they control their IP as well. So there's a lot of fracturing going on. So why did this happen? And this is unfortunately where I don't have a very satisfactory answer for you. I wish I had the reason. The thing about it is, I did all this digging. I even wrote people who are better experts on UK copyright law than me. I reached out to others, and I did not get what I consider a good answer. My first thought when I heard about this was that there had to be some kind of weird quirk in UK work-for-hire law in the early years. And I knew it couldn't just be a time thing, by the way, because the first episode of Star Trek aired in 1966, if I remember correctly, and the first episode of Doctor Who aired in 1963. And the result of that is, even though Doctor Who obviously was first, they're kind of in the same copyright era. You can kind of put them in the same ball. And Star Trek doesn't have these issues. So that wasn't it. It made me immediately think about a US versus UK thing. And I didn't find anything interesting there. That made me think about, well, the BBC and its connection with the UK government. I didn't learn anything there. The best answer I've gotten is that when they started doing Doctor Who, the budget was so minuscule that when they were hiring writers, they were striking deals that were very favorable to the writers on an intellectual property standpoint, mostly because they didn't expect Doctor Who would be selling millions and millions of dollars of merchandise 50 years later, because that's crazy. This is a low-budget sci-fi show about an old guy who flies around in a police box, travels through time and space. Yeah, I can see why they might not have thought this would have the longevity it turned out to have. But good stories are good stories, goddammit. So yeah, that's what's going on with that. Now, there is a few addendum items I wanted to talk about, because that's really all there is to it, is that basically up until, like I said, the end of the Fourth Doctor, there's a lot of things that are owned and have rights issues. But there's also a lot of other things that are fascinating. Because there was one item I learned in the research. There's this myth going around that the reason the Daleks appear in every episode is because there's a contract between Terry Nation and the BBC that basically they have to include them. That's not true. That's decisively not true. There's both Moffat and Terry Nation have gone on the record saying that that is not the case. And the long and short of it is it's not. But I have to say, this is why I love the Doctor Who fan base. I have to show this. This is the science fiction fan. This is actually on Stack Exchange. Is it true that the dogs have to appear every episode of Doctor Who? Great question. First answer actually does quote interview with Stephen Moffat. But I love the second most popular one right here. I love this. There's no Dalek story in Season 6, which proves there is no contractual requirement to have the Daleks in every season. I have never, in 15 years of dealing with copyright and plagiarism issues, have I ever successfully answered a copyright question correctly with sci-fi trivia. God, I love that. That is so beautiful. It is such a great fan base. But yeah, you see this all over. And by the way, apparently when I did the original article, I either missed or got some dates wrong for K9's appearance, and I've got to go back and fix that once I figure out what's up with that. So yeah, our Doctor Who on Reddit had some words for me. But all in all, it's been well received. Now, one thing I did learn over the course of doing the research was just how aggressive the BBC has become about protecting the copyright and things it does control. There was a big kerfuffle, if you will, back in 2008 over Doctor Who knitting patterns, basically for things like the Adipodes. I'm trying to remember what else it was, but it's somewhere in that text. You can pause and find out. But yeah, basically, we're publishing knitting patterns for making various Doctor Who things. The BBC stepped in and had them pulled down, even though they weren't being sold commercially. So yeah, that is an example of them being very, very, very aggressive, and there's been plenty of others too. The BBC has definitely taken a strong stance, especially since the reboot has been the success it has been, to enforce it. Now, and this even goes as far as the TARDIS itself. Like I mentioned, there's been some controversy over it. And one thing I mentioned the creator having the controversy over it, but there was also one that was resolved previously with the London Metropolitan Police trying to claim copyright in the TARDIS because it's a police box. That one got shot down, thankfully. But the point of the matter is, making knockoff TARDISes and so forth is a pretty big thing for them too. They've been very heavy-handed with that, and I find that particular fact fascinating because my favorite bar here in the West Bank in New Orleans actually has a TARDIS as the entrance. So I'm surprised we haven't heard anything about them getting in trouble for it. But yeah, the whole thing is just bizarre, and I've not been able to figure out why this took place. If you watching this know, please leave a comment or get in touch with me directly. I would love to know why so many creators from Doctor Who, the old classic Doctor Who, still hold copyright in their creations, while like K9 and so forth are still owned. And in fact, like I said, like I said in the article with K9, they're actually making a movie completely separate from Doctor Who, just taking the character and running with it. So it's absolutely fascinating to me, but I really wish I understood why it happened. All I got is a good guess. But that is it, though. There is a lot of copyright complexity in Doctor Who, making it, I think, the weirdest sci-fi show out there with an even weirder copyright history. Well, until next time, this is Jonathan Bailey, signing off.